the agenda, then we'll see if she's logged on. Otherwise, when I introduce public comments, I'll just have a very fantastic introduction to public comments. How's that? Okay. So before we get started, welcome everybody to the Council Economic Development Committee. It's Thursday, April 22nd. Today is a special Council Economic Development Committee meeting. Also wanted to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded, and so just know that. Also acknowledging the conversation before the meeting, we have a 6:40 hard stop, and I like that. And if it's a 6:40 hard stop, I will make sure we get to 6:40 and stop. So thanks. And we have a pretty good agenda, so I think we'd be able to get done. Unless Mr. Moon and Mr. Moon are long-winded, I think we should be out of here in time. Okay, so with that said, I'd like to move on to public comments. This is an opportunity for somebody from the audience who can comment on something that is not on the agenda. And so with that said, let me look at participants. And we do have one public comment. Mr. Kim Huggett from the Hayward Chamber of Commerce. So go ahead, Kim.
There we go. Now I'm live. I'm Kim Huggett. I'm president of the Hayward Chamber of Commerce, and I usually take the opportunity during public comments to give a quick business report. In March, we had our annual gala where we honored Amon Duper as the Business Person of the Year. That's the 77th time that the Chamber has honored a person, as well as honoring the business person. We honored the Firefighter, Police Officer, and Educator of the Year. It was live streamed from the conference center at LifeWest Chiropractic College, and we had about 60 people in this center spread out in 4 different corners. So we had little social bubbles there. It went very well, and I much appreciate those of you who participated. We actually had 8 chamber events last month and this month, including the 3rd ever meeting of our Black Business Roundtable. And hopefully when Council Member Andrews joins us, she can talk about where we're going with that new organization. Leadership Hayward had its first in-person session since last March, yesterday. They met in the library in the Fremont room, 25 people in a room for 180, and 6 people on Zoom. And then we had our afternoon session at fire station number 1, where they pulled all of the apparatus out of the garage, and we got spread out that way. So it was a great session. Also on Tuesday, there was a mild-mannered 420 celebration with food trucks in the parking lot adjacent Cookies downtown. I presume we're going to have to get used to those kinds of events, but I can attest the only scent was from the food trucks. So they're playing by the rules there. They're right across the street from the chamber headquarters. And also the Chamber will be joining economic development and its business needs survey throughout the city. I'm sure Paul will give some update on that. Also, since 2 council members here today are on the infrastructure committee that'll meet next week, you need to know that I haven't found a single downtown business in favor of the complete streets concept. That will come before the full council. In fact, the fire chief told me yesterday he hasn't been informed about this idea to reduce the number of lanes from 4 to 2 in order to accommodate bike lanes in an area where no one rides bikes. You may recall last August, the chamber got 45 businesses in the Huntwood Business Park to oppose the same concept of reducing the number of lanes from 4 to 2. In the case of Main Street, where my office is located, 4 lanes are required because all day long we have delivery vehicles in 1 lane to supply restaurants, bars, and other businesses. And I had a whole strip of pictures I could share with you, but I think you can probably visualize a 28-foot truck full of Coca-Cola parked in front of my office this morning delivering to various businesses. So that will be at the Infrastructure Committee next week. And then finally, speaking of Main Street, last Saturday there was a band and dancing at the bistro along the section of Main that's blocked off from B to C Street, thanks to the city. And a hula cultural group has taken an office in the old Green Shutter section, and they will have a small cultural event on that section of Main Street on May 8th in conjunction with the bistro. And we can't wait until we can start having downtown street parties again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huggett. Yeah, I have to say the gala was neat. It was really neat, different, and I wanted to say thank you for the gift bags. They were they came with the price of the ticket, so they were good. They came with snacks and stuff like that, and so forth. So that's good. Thank you for everything you're doing. And as a leadership alum myself, wanted to thank you for your work on the Leadership Hayward. So, okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes. And if there are no edits or subtractions or additions to it, I'll entertain a motion.
Definitely. I'll move it. I just also wanted to give me 1 second. Let me take a look at this notes that I was writing. Just a quick question on the survey that I was asking for. If we can do that via social media, or are we planning that, or is that a no-go, or what's the deal?
So yeah, during the staff announcements, staff was going to update the committee on a Hayward Business Needs Survey that was launched earlier this week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll move the item.
Okay. And then I don't see Andrew's here. Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, so unanimously passes. Moved by Councilmember Wahab, seconded by me, and it passes. Okay, let's see. Next is the report, and if let's see, where's she's still not here yet?
Do you want me to text her and see how long?
Yeah. Yeah,
it would be nice to have all three committee members.
Yeah, exactly. So what I want to do is, Suzanne, perhaps if you can pause us. Let's take a 3-minute pause, and
we could also, Councilmember Salinas, maybe go on to some of the staff announcements at the end, or another agenda item, and then come back to that one if you want to do that.
And I do want to highlight that when we do this here, I would like to encourage that we do this in all other subcommittees as well, just FYI.
Do what?
Whether we pause it or we adjust things, because, I do just want to highlight that I have not seen the equity in that piece. So thank you. So item number 3 or 4?
Well, let's wait till
Wait to see if she's going
to. Let's do a 1-minute pause just right now until we get a reply.
The recording has stopped.
She's joining right now.
Okay, perfect.
Her internet has gone down now. She's just texted me a picture of the little no internet sign. There she goes. There she's coming. You got your internet to work?
I'm back. Zoom doesn't like me.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome. And Councilmember Andrews, just so that you know, the minutes, they were approved unanimously.
Good job. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is a preliminary concept review, student housing mixed use proposal for 25501 Mission Boulevard, the Mission Crossings frontage. And so with no further ado, I guess I'll pass this first on to Ms. Ott or to Ms. Bowser. Who do I send this to first?
Ms. Bowser will be doing the presentation.
Oh, okay.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Salinas, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here before you. I wanted to bring this preliminary conceptual review to the CEDC to get some feedback for our potential developers. This is not a formal application, so we have not received any formal application request, but there is interest in obtaining some feedback. This particular site has been before CEDC from the very beginning, so before we even had a preliminary entitlement for the site. Preliminary conceptual reviews for development of this site were brought to CEDC for feedback. And then as we moved forward with the development of the residential and lack of construction on the frontage for the hotel that was entitled as a part of this, that was also brought back to CEDC. So as staff was approached, it only made sense to sort of bring back this preliminary conceptual review to CEDC to get some additional feedback from your committee. So just a little background, the picture here that you see is a picture of that frontage of that site on Mission. So as you can see, it's just basically a dirt lot. It's been graded, but this would be the location and is the focus of tonight's presentation. As you might be aware, the Mission Crossings project is a project that included a combination of residential townhomes and hotel and retail that was envisioned for this frontage, and that project was approved in 2017. As I mentioned, the entire site has been graded and it's been prepped for construction. However, the only vertical construction that we have seen so far has been the construction of the residential townhomes and the common open space garden area, which you can see sort of in the far right side of that slide. Staff has been working with the original developer to find an alternative plan. Not much progress specifically with that developer has been made yet to date, although there's still some ongoing discussions that will be occurring. But in the meantime, in March, staff was outreached by the Coleraine Capital Group, who are here today represented by Mr. and Mr. Moon, who would like to present a proposal for the frontage of this site. As you might also be aware, the project itself, after entitlement, was sold, and there are two different ownership groups that own these. So the residential portion is owned by Meritage Homes, and the frontage is owned by the Manchester Hotel Group. Mr. and Mr. Moon do have a letter of intent submitted with the Manchester Hotel Group and would like to explore a different proposal for the frontage that, like I said, has not been formally submitted, but they're looking for some feedback from this committee. Next slide, please. To give you some context, so you can see on the left is sort of a visual aerial shot of the project site with the zoning overlay shown. So the entire site has a Mission Boulevard neighborhood node zoning, but the frontage where this project would be proposed also has a commercial overlay. This commercial overlay on the frontage requires that there be commercial development along that property frontage unless a conditional use permit is granted. In addition, within the zoning designation as a part of the form-based code updates, any density greater than 35 units per acre, which is permitted, it just requires a separate process called major site plan review. The crux of that is just that normally our site plan review, typical site plan review decisions can be handled administratively, but major site plan review requires a public hearing before a planning commission, as does the conditional use permit. So entitlements for this potential project could all be grouped together and all handled at one time, but would require a public hearing before a planning commission for this particular proposal. Next slide. So the proposal before you, and I'm not going to go into too many details because I really want to leave that up to the applicant and with Coleraine to sort of more in detail describe their project. But the proposal essentially is 450 student beds in 128 apartment units, essentially 4 stories of residential above ground floor non-residential, a combination of retail, leasing office, an innovation center, and fitness spaces that would be along the Mission Boulevard and the corner of Toronto Avenue frontage, and then residential above that. There would also be a proposal for a centrally located parking structure that the units and the retail would wrap around. And then there would also be 2 separate individual courtyard spaces that would provide additional amenity space for the future tenants. The parking is all centralized, and it is decoupled from the cost of the rent. So it's unbundled from the cost to sort of reduce that. Coleraine Capital Group has been the primary constructor of a number of student housing projects for the Cal State University system. And they've got some extensive experience that they'll be able to share and talk about as far as some of the other projects that they've moved forward with, and can talk about a little more in detail what their proposal is here. As far as feedback that staff is looking for following the applicant's the proponent's presentation, is trying to get some feedback from the committee on the following areas. Next slide, please. Would the committee be supportive of such a proposal for the Mission Boulevard frontage? Are there any concerns with the overall height of the development or any of the other development standards such as open space or parking? Keep in mind that we don't have a lot of detailed plans, so we haven't been able to do a full detailed analysis of this, but we would should the proponent decide to move forward with a formal application. But just looking for some generalized feedback from the committee. And then if there are any concerns from the committee on the interface of this project with the Mission Crossing sort of residential development behind. So kind of taking a look at how they might interface, and are there any concerns or thoughts that the committee might have. So these questions are here. We will bring them back up again following the proponent's presentation to you. So don't worry, you don't need to memorize these. We will bring them back. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Moon to present their proposal for the committee's consideration.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody taking the time this evening to consider our conceptual proposal. Also, it's nice to have this opportunity to brainstorm with the community leaders, at the very early stages. So as Sarah said, we do have this property under contract with a letter of intent to give us the opportunity to, again, explore the concept that we would be interested in developing on this site. And by the way, I'd like to point out that the other David Moon, the much younger and better looking one, is my son, and his name is actually William, but I had forwarded this invitation to him, so that's why it says David. But I think from now on, I'm going to start just using him on my future presentations. Do I have someone else is controlling this, I'm assuming? So if we could go on to the next slide, please. First of all, I'd say that this is a mixed use project, as Sarah said, that we're, that we're conceptualizing, which would be residential, specifically student housing, which is kind of our forte these days. And then a mixed use component on the ground floor, which is what we've started to do at all of our student housing projects, so that we have something to offer not just to the students in the university and their students' families, but also to the neighborhoods and communities. So we found that that's a better way to go. So again, as Sarah alluded to, we've got a lot of experience with the Cal State system in particular. We've developed more beds for Cal State students off campus than any other company in the last 10 years at various campuses. And I won't dwell on that, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that. Next slide, please. I've listed, or we've just provided some photographs and basic information about some of the other projects that we've developed in Northern California, starting with our Cal State Monterey project. But this will give you an idea of the quality of the product that we provide. And in particular, as we go through the slides, and we can go to the next slide as well, we provide a lot of amenity space that's geared towards academics. So something that the students won't find anywhere else off campus. And in many cases, they don't even find on campus. But so we have computer labs, we have multiple study rooms, we have media rooms. You can go on to the next slide, please. Media rooms where the students can practice their presentations and work on group projects. But they're all designed, all these amenity spaces are designed to help the students succeed. And then probably most importantly is our programming. So we challenge our CAs, our community assistants and managers to engage the students in a social, recreational, and educational event or events on a weekly basis. And the idea there is to engage the students with one another. Typically, students are the best mentors for other students, but all of those things, the facilities that we provide and the programming that we implement at each of our projects help the students succeed, stay in school, graduate on time, all of those kind of things. So those are the basics of what we do on the student housing side. So we can go on to the next slide, please. The last slide there is our closest project to Hayward. This is in San Jose, a block from, it's on the corner of San Carlos and 3rd Street, just a block from the San Jose campus. So, I would be happy to initiate a tour for anybody that would like to see the facilities in person, just so you can kind of touch and feel and talk to some of the students at one of our facilities to give you an idea of what we do. Next slide, please. Anyway, I just talked about the benefits of purpose-built program housing, and there are many. And unfortunately, in the Cal State system, less than 25% of students in the Cal State system are provided that type of housing on campus. So 75% of the students don't have that benefit. They're living further away from campus. They don't have that peer interaction. They don't have these facilities and the programming to help support their educational endeavors. So, it's a real disadvantage for those that aren't able to find housing on campus or other purpose-built projects close to campus. So, again, we're very passionate about it, and I could go on all night, and I promised Paul and Sarah I wouldn't. So go on to the next slide, please. So these are just concepts of the type of project that we would propose. None of these are designed specifically for this site, but just, to give you a flavor. And I'm sure, you folks are all very familiar with mixed use projects with retail on the ground floor and residential above. But this is just, again, conceptualizing the type of project that we would, that we would propose for this site. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan that Sarah just showed you, again, on the ground floor with retail and other, kind of, fitness and leasing space. There's about approximately 15,000 of retail, including what we call the Innovation Center. So this is something we did in Sacramento with the encouragement of the city there and the university, where we provided here we're proposing 2,800 square feet. And we had about the same amount, a little bit less in Sacramento, but it's essentially space for that we're setting aside for co-working space or maker space, something that could be utilized by members of the community as an opportunity for and we would bring in an operator. So
This meeting is being recorded.
So, and then the retail space, obviously, it's going to be a mix of, in San Jose, for instance, we have tenants like Ding Tea, Mountain Mike's Pizza, Lee's Sandwiches. We have a FedEx space going in there and others. But basically convenience retail for the sake of the neighborhood. Next slide, please. Oh, I forgot to mention that all of our projects are sustainable developments, complete with charging stations. We have zip car programs, heavy on bike storage. We'll have zip car availability. We'll have probably some electric bikes, but LEED Silver minimum has been the case with all of our projects to date. And that would be the case here as well. Next slide, please. Again, retail, those are some of the tenants that we have at San Jose. Next slide, please. That was a conceptual rendering of our innovation space in Sacramento. It'll be laid out depending upon the operator that we find to operate it. But again, it's really what we're doing is creating the opportunity for an innovation or entrepreneurial operation of some type there. So it'll be dedicated to that type of use. Next slide, please. Again, I don't have to explain to you folks the economic impact of a major project. This would be approximately $70 million project. It would take approximately 20 to 24 months to develop. Over the course of that time, we would typically have 150 to 175 construction-related jobs on the property. And then, a project this size would generate a payroll these days actually well in excess of $15 million. Once operational, our residential component would employ approximately 10 to 12 permanent staff, and then typically 12 to 16 part-time, and those would be mostly our community assistants that serve all different kinds of functions, but primarily mentorship and kind of to the students, and also they manage, or they organize and manage all of our programming. The retail operations, just conceptually, with this amount of space, we're talking 50 to 60, possibly more full and part-time jobs. Innovation Center, we're envisioning approximately 10 full and part-time jobs. So a lot of opportunity for jobs. And then obviously the benefits that are all derived from that in the neighborhood. Again, you're familiar with direct and indirect impacts of projects of this type. Next slide, please. Again, just the kind of the happy face we're putting on this: live, work, play, and create. But that's a fact. I mean, with this type of project, you not only have a really healthy living environment for these students that are now going to be closer to the university, and will have, will diminish the environmental impacts by bringing them close to the university, but also all of the other things that the benefits that are derived from the retail component and the innovation center component. So, just the convenience of having these types of, food services or convenient services to the neighborhood that they can walk to, they can meet their friends for, coffee or lunch or dinner, or, all of those kinds of things that you're well familiar with. So, in a nutshell, that's what we're conceptualizing and that we brought to Sarah and Paul to consider. And again, we really appreciate the time that you're taking this evening to, consider our thoughts. And, if it's a heck no, we'd appreciate that because that will save us time and energy. But, hopefully there's something here that you might find appealing and that maybe we could, serve as the genesis for something that we could collaborate on and work on. But we love the opportunity to serve the CSU East Bay students, but also in particular this neighborhood, if it was something that you folks would consider. So again, thanks very much and happy to answer any questions. May I ask one thing before you, did you folks all get a copy of this just so you have something to refer to later?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And then again, we would be happy to provide anything in addition that would help you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let me go to
Do you need the drawing or the presentation?
Because I didn't get the
I got
PowerPoint.
drawing.
the PowerPoint was included in the agenda.
Okay, I'll check that.
We can send it again after today's meeting.
It's actually not. It's the unit plans, it's the sample project and the site plan, as well as the staff report, not that PowerPoint presentation that was sent.
It's posted on the
Okay.
it's posted on the City of Hayward agenda and all the materials. Just
Okay, so I'm on my Granicus on my iPad, city issued, don't have it, but sure.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll make sure you get that through Sarah and Paul, of course.
Okay. So let me, Sarah, did you, Ms. Bowser, did you have anything to say before I open it up for questions?
No, we're here to just get feedback and help answer any questions you have. There were 3 questions in the staff report. If you've got a copy of those, you can refer to those. We also have them on a slide, but it's kind of nice to be able to see everybody's face and together as opposed to little small icons on the side. So, but other than that, we're just looking for generalized feedback and to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Well, Paul, did you send the presentation to Councilmember Wahab and Andrews?
Yes, we did. I believe we did. It's posted with the packet.
So, well, let's do you have the questions in front of you, Councilmember Wahab?
The questions are in the staff report. I think
the questions are in the staff report. I have that.
All right.
Right? Okay.
Okay, so I'll go to questions from council members. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. I have more questions on the floor plans that I was looking at just for the student floor plan in terms of the bathrooms. If we were to move forward with that, there was one layout that I thought that one bathroom was a little bit further away compared to the other bathrooms, and just wanted to know if that was something that you could revisit in terms of design. Just seems like there was one bathroom that was in between bedrooms that would have been more convenient for one side of the house versus one where they have to walk a little further past the bedroom and then to the restroom. And just wanted to know if there was like is there a different design that you would consider for something like that? Or is there a strategic reason why that bathroom was further along? That was just like a one design question that I had.
Yeah, sure. So we have many different floor plans, different prototypes. So we didn't spend a lot of time focusing specifically on the floor plans because this was more high level. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, typically we have bed bath parity so that every single bedroom has its own bathroom. Every single bedroom, by the way, locks off. So they have privacy not only in their bedroom, but obviously they have their own bathroom as well. Although more recently we started to offer different floor plans where there's some shared bathrooms, and that's just to bring the price points down. These are Cal State students, so it's not like serving, some of the, private schools. We focus, on the Cal State system. Most of our student residents are on financial aid. So we've been doing everything we can recently with construction costs skyrocketing, as you're well aware, I'm sure, to bring those price points down. So, but to answer your question, yes, we can, we've got a number of different floor plans that we can utilize. So if there was, so we can substitute, no problem.
Yeah, so that was unit F1.
Yeah.
That I was thinking about. And then in terms of amenities, we have a lot of those types of amenities that were presented already. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to know if there's any activities that you've done, such as like an escape room or axe throwing, something that youth of that age. I mean, not everyone's in the axe throwing. I want to do it, but I know.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I never heard of axe throwing until a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess now, when we were approached by a company called Bad Axe or something on our San Jose project where we still have some space to lease. So I never even heard of it before. But yeah, I mean, we don't put any conditions per se on prospective tenants that might like the space. Obviously, we've got to make sure that it's conducive to the community, and we want to make sure it's space that's going to be utilized, because we wouldn't want to give up space that could be used by an operator that everybody in the neighborhood would gravitate to for the sake of something that was so specialty that only a few people in the community. So we'll give, as anybody would, I think, as the city would, I'm sure, we'll give a lot of thought to that kind of thing. So, but we're not, we're open to everything. So we're providing the space. And then in terms of the operators, we want to see what their history is, how they've operated in other communities, how other communities in which they operate have received them, all those kinds of things. So, yeah.
And there's a lot of surface level parking. Is there some, I know that's pretty expensive to do subterranean, but just wanted to know if you are also considering having a podium or something.
Well, yeah, so this is a wrap project. So this will be 5.5 roughly stories of parking that this project wraps around. So you don't see the parking, but it's within the development. So, and we could give you more details on that site plan, but that project, the 5 stories wraps around a parking structure.
Okay. And this would be in lieu of the hotel, if this was the project. That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. So what has been the feedback of Cal State East Bay, Chabot, and potentially any other partners that we may have?
So are you asking me that? We have not approached Cal State. We wouldn't at this early stage because we don't have the property formally under contract. So again, typically our first step in our due diligence process is to approach the city and make sure that there's support for it. Not all cities have this, have this body that you do here, which is awesome. But assuming we there was any traction, if this was the type of project that you folks were interested in, then we start to, obviously we do neighborhood meetings, and we would speak with the university. We have a great relationship with the Cal State system, not just the universities where we work, but also at the chancellor's office. So they're very familiar with our product and our operations. But that would be a next step, assuming, this was something that you folks would entertain. We'd go ahead and formally contract for the property and then start taking those types of steps.
Okay. So one of the other questions I do have is, now granted this is, primarily student housing, are we looking to potentially include teacher housing as well?
So we offer our housing to students, not just at, the most immediate school, but so it would be the Cal State East Bay, but also the community colleges or any higher level institution, but also not just the students, but the faculty and staff. So because we rent by the bed, and we do that so that students are only obligated on their bedroom. They don't have to sign on a lease for their entire apartment. If one of the students isn't paying their rent, they're not responsible. They're only responsible for their unit. But because that's typically the way we lease our units on a per bed basis, it appeals more to students than it does faculty and staff. But we have, at all of our projects, we have faculty and staff as well.
Especially in the studio.
And we also, by the way, in San Jose, for instance, particularly during COVID, when the campuses were not offering, on-campus classes, we do have some young professionals, for instance, some of whom were recent graduates from San Jose State and Santa Clara that have rented as well. So we're not excluding, anybody per se, but because of the way we lease our units and because of the way we program our units, they're particularly attractive to students.
Okay. And the reason why I bring up teachers is because I know a lot of the teachers are, I have friends that are teachers at Cal State East Bay, and they're renting out garages and so forth through the city of Hayward. So just highlighting that, we do have our, Mr. Satinder, Molly on the call as well. So I definitely want you guys to reach out when you guys can. The next question I did have is this potentially guaranteed that we will have these businesses up in place, or is this the concept that we're trying to do and there has been no previous partnership? I just want to know the relationships with some of these potential fillers.
Yeah. So no, nothing's, no, it's not guaranteed. So this is, again, we provide the space and then we market that space to operators. So, retail commercial operators. So just as we've done in San Jose. So the reason I, showed you Ding Tea and Lee's Sandwiches and FedEx and Mike's Pizza is just to give you an idea of tenants that have leased from us. But this will be available to any tenant, any retail commercial tenant, subject to our underwriting and vetting. But we haven't locked in with anybody at this point.
Okay. I definitely want to highlight some of the needs that if we are encompassing housing for this many individuals, just making sure that we highlight some of the needs for, residents, especially if it's student-oriented housing. Food, regular grocery stores type things that they can potentially pick up and obviously cook and not have to travel too much.
Exactly.
Can I ask, in regards to the parking, what is the feedback on the parking that you guys have had, or what is the inclination you guys may have?
Well, so what we've laid out on this plan is relates to 0.6 to 1 on the bed. So although most cities, their parking ordinances relate to units per se, because we're renting, per bedroom, we always like to have a minimum of 0.6 to 1. So 0.6 spaces to 1 bed. Although we offer a shuttle service as we would provide here because of the elevation change, obviously up to, even though we're relatively close to the university, they've got a big hill to climb. And so we'll offer a shuttle service, which we do at most of our projects. And when we have that shuttle service, very few of our students drive their car to the to campus because they don't want to pay for the parking, among other reasons. So that shuttle goes continuously back and forth from early in the morning till the evening. And then in some cases, we use that shuttle to take folks to grocery stores and that kind of thing. But at 0.6 to 1 with a shuttle, this won't be an issue. Typically what we find is students, what we call warehouse their cars. So they're not using that car to go back and forth to school, but they may want to go home, to wherever they're from on the weekends, or they have part-time jobs. Most CSU students, as you may know, have part-time jobs. So they do need parking spaces. We're getting pushback everywhere we go these days on parking, but it's the opposite of what it was when I got into the business. But nonetheless, we feel that's kind of a minimum that we would need to serve the
and then retail parking.
and then we have retail included in that as well.
Oh, okay.
And that was to code, yeah.
The quick question for Mr. Nguyen, I did want to ask in regards to and I believe that this is the case, but I may be wrong, so I just want to double check with you. Does Cal State East Bay require that their freshman class live on campus? Ignoring COVID, right? Just in general.
I don't believe that's the case.
Okay. All right. Because I know some of the state schools, for example, San Jose State.
I think in talking with the president, I actually don't think they have enough housing on campus to require
to support.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and as you may know, they're now, because of COVID, so where they had, triples and quads and things like that, the Cal State systems aren't doing that now for the fall. So they're trying to get down to, one person per bedroom. Most of the campuses can't do that. So there's even more of a need typically than there was before. And there's always been a dire need, frankly, for housing to serve Cal State schools, but even more so after COVID.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Councilmember Rohab. Can I just, because I want to just make sure it's clear. So you wouldn't be under contract with Cal State. This would be private student housing.
This is all private. Yeah.
That's true. But like if we were to do partnership, I just wanted to know, did they have a requirement? For example, San Jose State does have a requirement that the freshman class has to be on campus.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you. That's all my questions for now.
Thank you.
So, when I saw this come across, my desk, there were a lot of thoughts came to mind, and the product looks good, the project looks great. The San Jose State, Sac State, you guys certainly know what you're doing, and it's a high quality product. My concern, let me focus on the question. So the question, so the first question is, would the committee be supportive of a proposal for the Mission Boulevard frontage? So let me address that first. This parcel of land, not little parcel, but this parcel of land, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of conversation around it, and there's been a lot of discussion around it. But going beyond that, looking back 5 years ago, even as long as 7 or 8 years ago, we past councils have taken a pretty strong position on no housing on Mission Boulevard on the frontage, and the primary reason has been, we don't want to let go of potentially strong economic generating sites, right? In fact, we call them catalyst sites, and I don't think this is a catalyst site, but there are other sites that we've designated catalyst sites, and and so my concern is that. Well, before I say what my concern is, will the ground level be 100% commercial?
No, not 100%. So it wraps around. all the frontage on Mission and then wrapping around the corner on Toronto, but the courtyard space would be residential in both courtyards. So it'd just be all the way along Mission and then wrapping around Toronto.
So Mission and Toronto would be the windows facing the street will be commercial.
Yes, correct. Yes. Yes.
Interesting. And then the units in the back facing the courtyard will be housing units?
Residential, yes.
Residential, okay, yeah.
Right.
Huh, interesting.
Although we also have some amenity space in one of the courtyards, fitness center, the study rooms, the computer lab, those also would face into the courtyard, yeah, on the first floor.
Yeah, interesting. Well, because, one of the, I look at this as sort of a trade-off, right?
Sure,
and I'm, for, and I'm not, it's not a bad or, good, bad, and or indifferent. I'm not, no judgment for right now. But, the trade-off is, there's a use potentially that could be there that would yield, a greater amount of tax revenue to the city.
Yep.
And then, you have this particular project that, may or may not generate the equitable amount of revenue, tax revenue to the city.
Sure.
And so so that's where my struggle lies right there. And, don't take it personal.
I don't. I've developed a lot of hotels.
Yeah.
So I know what that's like, but
yeah. And I'm, and I can't help but, I can think of a couple of past council members who, were unrelenting on letting go of that frontage area, and one thing I was thinking about, is, once we do this, my concern, now here's my concern. My concern is once we do this, then it opens up the rest of Mission Boulevard, to housing. And, and I'm, we'll start to get developers coming to us asking for, for changes in the zoning, to do this. And, so that's a big concern for me. I work up at Cal State. So, do we need housing? Absolutely. Do students need housing? Absolutely. I mean, and do faculty need housing? Absolutely. And so staff, I mean, and it's not only at Cal State, right? It's at Chabot, it's at, it's in the school district, and so forth. So, so I'm, that's where, my struggles, my conflicts lie in.
Understood.
Do you know in the, and I know this is a different real estate market and rental market, but do you know what the price points would be for the units for students?
I shared some price points with Paul and Sarah, and it's just based on our other products. So, we're talking 3 years out before this product would be on the market. But so we, in our double occupancy, we range anywhere from the high 500s all the way up to our single occupancy studios, which would be in the $1,500-$1,600 a month. So that's the range. We typically like to have a preponderance of lower priced units for Cal State, of course. But so the average might be anywhere from $950 to $1,250, I would say, per month. But that's including all of the utilities as well, and then obviously use of all the facilities. So the fitness center, all of the academic amenities, all the programming, everything. So it's we think it's a very attractive value. Will be less than what they charge on campus, and the campuses don't like to hear that necessarily, but it's a fact. And one of the reasons we do that is because students in universities in the Cal State system that are required to live on campus their first year, we want them to be able to kind of transition seamlessly when they're forced off campus in their junior or their sophomore year, into something that's not going to be a burden, that their families have already established a budget. We want to be equal to or less than, and so far we've been able to be less than in all of the markets that we're operating. So.
Yeah. I guess now my question to staff, and maybe Paul or maybe Jennifer, I'm just looking at sort of the trade-offs. I'm looking at the economic trade-offs here, and I'm not, and I don't want to give Mr. Moon a bad impression. I think this is a great project, right? And so, but I guess it's the trade-off. I mean, is it something to be concerned about?
Well, I mean, I'll start, and then I'm sure maybe Kelly or Paul want to jump in as well. But I mean, I think obviously a hotel would have had significant transient occupancy tax with a very little service cost, right? So it's a great use for cities in terms of generating tax revenue. The hotel market is speculative right now, unpredictable. And so I guess, on the other hand, we need student housing, like you said, and there was even talk, I think on Tuesday night, about wanting to have a youth innovation lab. And so this development provides that from a private development standpoint without public subsidy. And we know we need student housing, and it has other retail along the frontage. So even though it might not be complete frontage, there's still retail, and we're going to get some users and help create that activity along mission that we wanted. So I don't have an easy answer for you. I think you've got two projects different project. One's a bird in the hand, right? Potentially. I mean, hopefully it would move forward and there would be something built and you'd get those amenities, but you're not going to get the same tax benefit. And so it really is a policy call, I think, for the council to kind of figure out what's more important. And this kind of hits the mark on a lot of things the council wants. So did the hotel, obviously, but the hotel is uncertain right now and really up in the air. So I don't know, Paul or Kelly, if you guys want to.
I would just say, I think those are great comments. I would also just echo, I think, the comment that you made, Councilmember Salinas, about setting a precedent for other parcels along Mission Boulevard with other developers that have been pushing on the city to convert that commercial frontage to housing. So it's just something to keep in mind. Again, it's a policy choice for the council. It's not an easy one. I think there's pros and cons. More retail on the site might be, preferred. I think the concern is making sure that whatever the retail space, that how it's developed enables and facilitates. Sometimes when you get that ground floor retail in apartment buildings, it's shallow, the ceilings are low, and you end up with the complex's fitness center and just not high quality retail. So I think that would be a concern that I would have in terms of just making sure that how the retail is developed and the sort of spaces that are created for it.
And if I may just interject, just so you have the information. So these would be 14-foot ceilings for the retail, and we're conscious of that as well. No point for us to have retail that we can't lease. So, we've learned our lesson over the years, my 40 years in this business. But so it's, we're experienced retail developers, not, standalone retail as well as mixed use, but those are very cogent points, and we appreciate that. And so we've, that is baked into this design, by the way. So.
Something else, just another comment, is to think if where you're willing to make that trade-off with the exception of Mission Boulevard frontage, right, then that could be the comment. And I mean, so you can also, your comments don't have to be completely yes or no. It could be yes, but X, Y, and Z. So those are just some other ideas. And obviously then Mr. Moon has to decide if he can meet those requirements or not and make that decision. So it doesn't have to be completely black and white.
Yeah. And, yeah, you're right. And I agree I agree with that. And, the other, before I get into the second question is, if if you're sort of feeling us out and sort of figuring out sort of the mood, I guess, I'll say this: if you were to do this, let's say if this were to move forward, the commercial element, it would really have to wow us, or it would really have to wow me, right? I mean, Mountain Mike's Pizza, right? Now axe throwing, let me tell you, I can get into axe throwing, but no, but I think the retail would just really the retail and the amenity. I mean, it would have to be wow, and I know that's maybe the expectation is high, and but if I'm going to go to the folks in the neighborhood, and if I'm going to go to folks who I have talked to years past and have said, because I've made commitments to folks, right? And I've said, Mission Boulevard, commercial, right? And so if we were to go through, like I said, it would really have to be something fantastic. I mean, we would have to out fantastic. You know what I'm saying? And so, anyways, with that said, let me move on real quickly. In terms of height, I know you're building this in front of the other development in the Meritage, I believe, development. I certainly wouldn't want this towering over it, but I would assume something comparable, and but still nice, right? And that is that when you're looking at it after a few years, that it doesn't start to look shabby, and and not to knock student housing. I mean, I lived in student housing, and I also lived on off-campus apartments, and over the years, we would need to have some kind of a requirement in this where the property is kept up, maintained, and it where you're driving down Mission Boulevard and all of a sudden it goes, yeah, that's the student housing, and so there would have to be some big standards, some high expectations on upkeep and facade and and so forth in this.
Well, if I can just address that, I would love for you, any of you and all of you, to tour all of our projects that we've developed. The first question or the first response we get in all of our projects is, this is student housing. Wow, I wish I could live here. So, we're very proud of the product that we developed. Nobody could tell that any of our projects are student housing, certainly not what they think of as student housing. But that's obviously critical to our investors, our lenders, our partners. And so appreciate that. But everything we've done and we do is first class, and it's maintained that way. So, and that's, just as important to us, and I appreciate that it's important to you. So. We get that, and I agree. So, and whatever standards that you want us to live up to, I guarantee you, they're the standards that we already have. So inherently.
And then Ms. Ott, and I know this is purely a high-level presentation. When we get into the details, when will we have that opportunity to start really hammering out more of the details in terms of specific asks?
For the frontage for this project, well, I think based on the comments, my understanding, and Mr. Moon can correct me if I'm wrong, but is that they're going to hear what the three council committee members say here, and if it's well, I won't speak for him, but if they feel that they've gotten sufficient kind of direction that this is something generally positive, maybe with some changes, maybe they'll make some judgment call as to whether or not it's worth their additional time and money to then either do an option on the property or to then submit an entitlement application, which obviously, as we know, costs money and time and energy that they're foregoing somewhere else on another site potentially, and they'll have to make that decision, and they won't ultimately know, obviously, until they get to the Planning Commission. And I guess Sarah would just go to Planning Commission unless it were brought up to the council. Is that correct? Which it probably would be, considering the importance of the site and project. And so they're looking to see if there's enough direction here that it's worth their time and money. And I can't, obviously, Mr. Moon's going to have to figure that out based on what he hears tonight. If they did go forward, my understanding, Sarah, is that's a good, 6 to 9 month process for a major site plan review and CUP?
Yeah, likely. Yeah. So it would probably take at least that long to go through that entitlement process and get before the Planning Commission, bringing forth staff's recommendation on that to them, having them make a decision. And then, if it was called up, you might be adding another, 30 days or so to get it before council. So you might add another month or something to that, but that's what you'd be looking at as far as timeline goes. And then obviously following that, if it was successful, then you've got, time for construction drawings and things like that. I think that's why Mr. Moon indicated that, if it was favorable, you're probably looking at like 24 months before you probably start to see really some stuff coming up out of the ground on the site, and have it be developed. So that's obviously something for the committee to consider, as you're providing feedback as well.
Okay. All right. I have some concluding remarks, but I'll hold off on those, and then I'll go on to Councilmember Andrews had her hand up first, and then Councilmember Wahab.
Thanks. I heard from the applicant that he's built hotels before. Just do another one here. No, I actually had a question about apartels, and wanted to know if you were familiar with that concept and what you thought about that. I've seen it done in Los Angeles and Chicago, and it's an opportunity for people who live near universities to have an apartment, but also rentals or hotel rooms. So just want to see if you've heard of this concept and if that was an opportunity you would be interested in pursuing.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I'm not really familiar with it, so I don't want to display my ignorance on on screen here. But it's not what we do, I must say, and I'm just not that familiar with it. So although I've heard of the concept, but I have done a lot of hotels development, and I've got a lot of friends still in the hotel business, and these are tough times, obviously. And our business, as y'all know, is very much driven by capital, and there's just no capital for hotels these days. But then again, and no one really knows when and how the hotel business is going to come back, particularly for the business traveler. And most hotel chains really rely on the business traveler. So that's, who knows what's going to happen. But we do know there's a dire need for student housing. And ever since we've focused on it, we've been 100% with waiting lists on every one of our projects. And even through COVID, when they haven't had, students on campus, we've maintained 70% occupancy. So, and then now we're pre-leasing like crazy for the fall now that CSU has announced that, at least 50% of the classes are going to be on campus. So that's what we know. But we also are very familiar with retail commercial. I've done millions of square feet of retail commercial over the years. So we think a mixed-use project like this is ideal. Again, that concept is something that, that I'm interested in learning more about, but I hesitate to speak on something I'm not really familiar with. So.
Okay. And then one of the reasons why I was asking so much about the retail is Mission is kind of treated as a freeway, and some of the streets that have ground floor retail in our city are sitting empty right now. So I'm a little nervous about having that retail on Mission and people not going to it. And so the reason why I was asking for activities like axe throwing is because people are going to San Francisco or to Oakland and have these experiences, and they drive an hour and a half to have these types of activities. in their college, and then they can't do anything like that here. We've started getting things open, thanks to the help of our, planning department and building department. But I was just wondering if there was something like with the regional draw that could help with making sure they stay open, because once you do some of those things once, you probably won't go back. But we also have we just opened a Mountain Mike's, right? Well, we opened one just literally this week. So.
Yeah, so destination retail, I get that. I understand that. Again, getting back to the wow factor, all of that's good for us. In the convenience of food service and things like that, we'll serve the local community. We're going to have 400 and some odd students here. So you want to have operators in there that are going to serve that, baked in market. But then you've also got the Mission Crossing project behind us, and 15,000 students, at the CSU. So, but very much understand, the fact that this is a very busy thoroughfare, and you want to have that destination retail operator where they're going to drive into the parking structure and park and come on in addition to those folks that can walk to.
Yeah. And the last thing I was going to ask is, would you consider also having the shuttle drop off near downtown and Southland?
Yeah. So whatever, we canvass the students once we start operating and find out where they want to go. And then we work it into the schedule. So the primary function is to take them back and forth to the campus. But in addition to that, we'll have 2 or 3 or 4 places where we're going to have, a need, or the students are going to have a need on a weekly basis. So we'll identify those.
Okay, thank you.
And that's something we definitely want to work with the staff on.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Wahab?
Are we doing public comments on this item by any chance?
Yes. I think I forgot to do public comments before. Well, yeah, I think I forgot to do public comments before this. So yes, so we'll do it afterwards.
Okay. So I definitely want to hear from the public, especially residents and so forth, if they have comments. And obviously, my perspective is always open to their input. I do want to highlight that just overall, since we're beyond questions at this point, right? We could just add our comments, or how do you? You know what? Let's hold on to your comments. How about that? Okay. And then I'll let me stop our comments, open up for public comments, and then I'll come back and get your last parting words. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for reminding me. Okay, so let me. I'll stop the questions. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to make a comment to this? And it looks like we have one hand, and it is Mr. Paul Hodges.
Unmute. Good now?
We got you. We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to make a comment about when you drive down Mission Boulevard, you'd never know you were just past a major college. We really need some presence of being at a college or driving by a college town. This project could be a catalyst for more tax generating businesses that is related to the fact that there is a very large college just up the hill. And as far as a hotel, I mean, Cal State is a Division II school and has a real robust athletic program that could use more hotel space for traveling teams that come to compete at Cal State. And that's all I got to say. Thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. Next caller, we have Mr. Satender Mali.
Yes, good evening, Council Member Salinas and Wahab and Andrews. Thank you very much for hosting this tonight. So my name is Satender Mali. I'm the Associate Director for Government and Community Relations for Cal State East Bay. And just a couple of comments that I wanted to put out there. So like many of you, we were disappointed that the hotel project does not appear to be coming to fruition. We were very hopeful that would come online to afford an opportunity for our many visitors and others to be able to come through and stay at, and also a place where our students could come and intern, particularly those in the hospitality, recreation, and tourism program. And actually, that was a big reason why we were supportive of that project. Now, that being said, we are where we are. And, I will just say in general that, we are supportive of affordable options off campus, and affordable being the operative word. We will be watching closely and are prepared to engage with Mr. Moon and his associates at the appropriate time. But we will defer to all of you first to see as to whether or not this is something that the city wishes to pursue. So thank you.
Thank you, Satender. Let's see, and I believe that is it. No more hands. I'll close public comments, and Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. So number one, I did want to highlight that my number one concern is going to be the affordability for students in particular. This is a CSU, number one. Number two is that the city of Hayward is, at the end of the day, Cal State East Bay is also still considered a commuter school. I also want to acknowledge parking spaces. I think that we are not there yet where everyone is just walking everywhere and biking everywhere and things like that. Even if they wanted to go up on campus, they're going to use their car. Not everyone's going to walk up a hill every single day and every evening come back and so forth. So I just want to be cognizant of that. So I do care about the parking. Personally, I'm not even sure exactly, and I would love for our city to provide feedback, even just personally on the Green Shutter building and how the parking space has gone there, because that has zero parking. And then I do want to highlight the business aspect. Mission Boulevard is one of our core main streets. And there has been a significant investment in beautifying the streets, improving the streets, the traffic flow, things like that. I have consistently talked about that entire area that I think is like dilapidated and should be fixed up. And I've said it in the last meeting as well. I would like to see nicer storefronts and higher quality. So based on the imagery that you guys have provided, looks nice. Now, I hope that that's actually the final product in some ways, because, people like to play with the photos. So I do want to highlight that as one of my concerns. I'm actually more interested in having the storefronts being community value added stores, right? So for me, for example, I would like to see a Starbucks. I think all students like coffee. I also think that the teachers and the residents and so forth, and I'm a Starbucks person. So I would like to see a Starbucks potentially, any coffee shop, to be honest with you, but preference is Starbucks. I also think that the area, I don't want to get into fad type business storefronts, right? I want something that is going to be a staple for the residents of Hayward. And these storefronts are not just going to be frequented by students, but also residents in the area, people that work in the neighboring businesses, and so much more. So I want to see more anchor style storefronts there, even if it's a smaller, even if it's a smaller floor plan. I do just want to highlight that. So if we can kind of focus on that, and then at the same time, I do want to highlight that, in regards to concerns about the frontage, I'm not 100% clear as to what are going to be the concerns just yet. I definitely want to hear from the public when you guys do engage. And so I'm pretty much, it's not applicable for me at this moment in time. I do also want to make sure that it's still walkable for a lot of people, because with students and potentially a coffee shop, and you have people sitting outside, and then the traffic flow, just making sure that safety is a priority, things like that are a priority. I do want to also highlight that, I constantly hear in regards to, I think some of the previous public comments about the walkability and then also lanes being squeezed and so forth. And I think that's more of a Director Amiri comment, but I just want to acknowledge that whatever we do, that traffic flows very freely, number one. Number two is that people can still walk and bike. Number three, people can still park because you may just want to pick up your Starbucks, don't live in the building, and then leave, right? So that quick, in and out transaction, and that has to be considered. And again, I actually do like the floor plans that you guys have provided for students. I like the fact that, especially the multi-room ones where each of them have an individualized bathroom. For me, I do think bathroom usage is a human right. So, that's privacy, that's care, this is exactly what I'd like to see, to be honest with you. So I appreciate that. Other than that, I welcome you guys into Hayward if you guys do come. And I do hope that you guys work with our residents in particular, as well as our schools. And as much as we can help, we'd love to help.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrews.
Yes, so I do think there's probably going to be some people who are going to be adamant about having a hotel. So I'm a little concerned about us presenting a residential project in general. So that just putting that out there. But I do like the idea of the shuttle going around town, not just to Cal State East Bay, to give people some mobility without their car. I am concerned about retail still on Mission, and I do agree about having anchor stores, but I'm also thinking about things to do for 18 to 20-year-olds, because most people associate college with drinking in bars and not necessarily thinking about other things that people can do to socialize. And we don't have a lot of those activities here for that age group. And if we are going to have students in housing on Mission and they don't have a car, they're not necessarily going to be able to go to Southland all the time or downtown all the time. So that's, something that we can think about as just maybe one of the storefronts. It doesn't have to be the whole floor, first ground floor. And I do think that we can also think about having amenities that are helping students that are in college, if we're going to focus on that. So if it's like a UPS, I mean, everything is electronic, but I'm sure there's some things that students need that would help with their, I don't know what they have at the student store anymore. I went to school a long time ago, so I still had to go pick up readers and print things. So it might be slightly different, but it would be nice to have like something like a computer lab type place, because inevitably, whenever you have a paper due, your computer flips out. So if something that can support students in that capacity, that would also be good. But otherwise, I thought the examples that you forwarded of the different types of projects, they were really, really great looking projects. I just hope that in the future, we can start looking at things like apartels, more flexible uses, so we can still try to get those tax dollars that we were seeking from a hotel and still have an amenity, and then still provide desperately needed housing. So if we can get something, as a combo in future projects, I think that's something we should start looking at. So thanks.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to sound, I don't want to be the proverbial grumpy old man, but I think it's a great product. I think it's great. The examples you've shown, I got to agree there. I think, they look really good. For me, I really have to think through the trade-off. And, Mr. Moon brought it up. He said it literally as I was writing it. I put right here, wow factor on my note right here. Just right when you said it, I had just written it down. as I like to say, people compare Hayward to other cities. And so I always tell folks when they come in with a great project like this, I say, you know what, we want to be better than San Jose. We want to be better than San Marcos or, and Sac State. And I have to agree with Mr. Hodges when he called about, a lot of folks don't realize that just, a few blocks up Harder and Carlos B, we have, 24,000 people up there. Right. And a lot of those folks, they eat, they buy gas, and so forth. So, there's, there's really got to be a wow factor here. And, conversely, I like it. I mean, I think it's, as long as you keep it affordable, right. And make sure that, when you plan this and develop it, I have to agree with Satender. Students don't have any money, and it's not even that anymore. We have a lot of students that choose to go to Cal State East Bay because they can't afford to live in the school that they got accepted to, like at Sac State or like at UC Merced or something. So they stay home so that they can afford to live at home, so that they can live at home. But it'd be nice, because I have family who the kids go to Berkeley and they live in Oakland, and they moved out and they actually have an apartment in Berkeley. And so, I think that's promoting the college going culture. It's promoting, this whole, pathway that we want families to go down. Right. So key things I'm going to be looking for is affordability. I'm going to be looking for, that the wow factor in retail, and amenities, height, I think I said this the other day, about density. I mean, I'm not afraid to go up, medium to high density. This is the area to do it. Sometimes the economics of development are, a little bit above my head, but, I'm not afraid to look at plans that push the envelope in terms of density. And so, show us something that's good and, and that can serve a lot of folks, serve a lot of students. And in proximity to the property, to the development behind it, my central concern is, right now they're very sensitive right now. And so, we really need to be in communication with them. We really need to make sure that they're, updated on this, because, something to think about. A lot of those folks bought homes there with the idea that there was going to be a hotel there, right? And so, that could potentially be a hard conversation that we're going to have with a lot of the neighborhood over there. And so, but, fantastic retail might change their minds. It might make, there might be an award-winning axe thrower that lives in that, housing project back there. And so, but anyways, those are my comments, and I hopefully that gives you what you need.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Reach out with that axe.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Am I dismissed or?
Yes, you are dismissed. I believe so.
All right. Well, thanks again. I hope you all have a nice evening. Really appreciate it. This is, this is just a great opportunity for us, to brainstorm and I guess we'll reach back out to Paul and Sarah, and if you folks would entertain the next step, we'd love to go on to the next step with you. Okay. All right. Thanks all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Okay, so moving on to the next item, item number 3, review and discussion of the proposed revised 2021 or 2020-2021 regular CDC meeting schedule. Paul, you want to kick that off?
Let me share my screen, the presentation. If it will let me.
And you got 9 minutes.
Great. So as you know, we've been working through a new schedule. So staff has presented 3 new dates for the rest of the remainder of the fiscal year. The meetings would be held May 27th, June 24th, and July 22nd at this time slot 5 to 6:40.
Okay. Let me open this up for public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll move over to council members. Questions, comments?
Yes, I know I stated to our city manager that in May, my schedule would change. That wouldn't allow me to do Thursdays. And I think that we said that we're going to cross that bridge when we get there, but we're roughly 2-3 weeks away. I do want to highlight that, I don't want to make this difficult. I understand all of us kind of have like busy schedules. And I don't know when we're going to get back to normal, but I do want to state that I could do it online, but elsewhere. I just want to give you guys a heads up that in May, that's my schedule. So if it goes into August, I don't know what's going to happen in August, September, October, so forth. So I just wanted to highlight, I was happy to do, I guess I'll switch it to a Wednesday, but it is what it is. And I think that if it becomes an issue for me, I will reach out to our city manager.
Okay.
So just to clarify, so you can do those dates virtually, but if we switch in person, then that would be a problem? I just want to... Okay.
Yeah, I'd still have to do it virtually, most likely.
Okay. Councilmember Andrews?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. I believe this is a non-voting item, right? So you're just telling us. Okay.
We just wanted to make sure, because of just some of the scheduling conflicts up front, that everyone was on the same page, and if there were issues like the ones that were raised, that we could make sure that they still worked, and if we needed to work to try to schedule something different. But it sounds like it works for now virtually. If it goes back to in person, then we'll need to take another look at the schedule.
Okay. Yeah, and Director Ott, it is a conflict, but I just want to move past this at this point.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you so much.
This is actually a voting item because we'll have to change it with the city clerk. Yes.
Oh, I see.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion from anybody.
I move the item.
Moved by Councilmember Andrews.
I'll second it with our caveat.
Seconded by Councilmember Wahab with the caveat. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously passes. Thank you. Now we go on to council future meeting topics.
This is the same table that you saw last session.
Okay. Okay, so let me go to council comments. Go ahead, Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. And now I just wanted to highlight that, and maybe this is just me, but I do feel that these meetings, even though this last item was a little bit of a long item, that we can make it a little bit more robust and talk about a couple of different things. So for example, COVID economic recovery, the support programs for retail businesses, for restaurants and hospitality businesses, and small minority / women-owned businesses. I do think that for me, I feel like these three can be put into one robust meeting, and the difference in conversation would be, at least in my perspective, the type of support And maybe the outreach would be slightly different, not necessarily the type of support, just the outreach, right? So we're outreaching to women-owned businesses or things like that. But I do think at the end of the day, we're trying to provide a robust support system for all of these. That's my perspective. I just think that it should be kind of condensed, and the sooner we can tackle this as a larger thought early in May, I think that we can then clean up in June and July what else needs to happen. I just don't think we should be separated.
Yeah, and so Paul and I have talked about this, and the reason they were separated now, and Paul can correct me, is because each one of those were programs that needed to be developed with details, and it just takes time for staff to do that. We have talked about maybe switching it a little bit and doing something, like you said, a little more general without a lot of prep time. And I don't know, Paul, if you want to chime in, and then maybe following up with more detailed programs that give staff more time to develop that. What are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So initially when we thought about recovery planning, we wanted to kind of develop a framework, and that's how we ended up with the 3 different sectors or focus areas, so to speak. But you're absolutely right, Councilmember Wahab. There are overlapping programs as staff has begun doing some research and initiated our outreach to businesses, and there will be a number of programs that kind of overlap, but we wanted to keep that framework so we make sure we're adequately addressing the unique needs of each sector. And so, there is an opportunity as we start putting our thoughts on paper to understand the scope, size, and cost and resources required for the various programs to combine those 3 items. So, yeah, it is subject to change somewhat.
And the reason why I highlight this, and I think I know I mentioned a little bit in the last meeting too, is I don't want to waste a year spreading this out. We know COVID impacted all businesses. We know that, women and minority-owned businesses are more struggling and so forth. And maybe if it's even a single item and then highlighting, just, categorizing, these are our concerns, here are your questions, or here's, where we'd like you to put input. Even if it's a checkbox, do you want us to do, I don't know, financial assistance? Do you want us to do whatever for these categories? I just would like us to move quicker on the COVID response and more swiftly and stronger on these pieces, because the next phase that in my mind is I'd like to also do a workshop with retailers, with developers, with businesses. For example, in Tuesday's call, we had somebody saying that people don't want to develop in Hayward, right? I want to reach out to that person who called and said, why do you hear this? What's the deal, right? And then the businesses, for example, you have the Axe concept. We have, me with Starbucks, things like that. I'd like to have a very strong, robust workshop and hear the feedback from the stakeholders that actually do the work, right? So that's my 2 cents on it. But other than that, I'm happy to make the slight adjustments and so forth. I just want to move quicker.
Yeah, and we'll do our best. We have staffing capacity issues, but we also need to get the stimulus money, because these programs ultimately will need to come from stimulus funding. And so we'll have a workshop on that on Tuesday night. And then you'll see in that our proposal is to use the CDC as a way to do the outreach and kind of finesse the programs. But there's only so much money we can spend at a time. But we'll give this some thought and think about how we frame the conversation in May to maybe have a component of kind of a bigger picture, as well as maybe some of the details. And so we'll go back and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Jennifer. And also, it's good to remember that the recovery will take much longer than a year. So, I think it's important to certainly accelerate the process, as you said, but we also want to be mindful, a lot of the businesses might not know exactly what they need a year from now. And so we still need to be cognizant and to be lean and able to quickly pivot to the, whatever issue du jour comes up in a year from now that comes out of COVID recovery. So,
and my concern is not only just supporting the businesses that are currently in play, but a lot of our businesses may not even come back or want to come back, right? Mm-hmm. So the next phase in this process for me is new businesses. So that is really what I want to focus on. You have that first intermediate, support our current businesses, second intermediate to long-term. Sure. How do we bring in new businesses? That's really where it's at, because I personally think we're struggling in this aspect.
Yeah, I would say those aren't mutually exclusive, but those do happen concurrently. So, we're not focused on just retention. In the field of economic development, retention is generally the key. It is always harder. It's always easier to retain the business that you have than attract new businesses. Exactly. And so, with that in mind, we are still actively in the business recruitment game.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Andrews.
I'm okay with doing a presentation with the higher level combined topics. That's fine with me.
Okay.
And then also, I didn't remember the calendar, but are you going to be presenting on the survey that you are producing on? Yeah. Okay. All right. So that will be happening after that, or is it going to be part of that?
In the announcements, I was going to talk about the survey, but the survey will run through March, and then as soon as we get the analysis done, we'll be able to integrate it within our proposals to show what the business community is saying about the various recovery programs we're pitching.
Okay.
You said the survey is in March? I'm so sorry, I heard that.
The survey's underway. The survey will end in May 13th.
Okay, so all right. Just seeing if that was coinciding with that. Okay, that works for me. Thanks.
Okay, moving on to announcements.
From staff or from council members? You're muted.
We'll start with staff.
Sure. Thank you. Let me share my screen again real quickly. So as I was saying, the Economic Development team is happy to announce we did launch a citywide business needs assessment survey in Spanish and English. The survey consists of 25 questions that collects a lot of demographic information about businesses that we don't have in order to do some very specific future target outreach with the equity lens in place. But the crux of the survey is twofold. One, to identify how businesses are doing, to let them talk about how they survived the process or what issues they're having. And two, to ask them specifically what programs and policies and various initiatives they would like the city government to take on to support the recovery. So we're hoping, again, that was launched on Tuesday. The survey will have about a 3-week lifespan. We expect to continue to do outreach in the next 2 weeks to get as many businesses to respond as possible. And then staff will take a look at the results and provide an analysis to this committee, along with and those findings will influence the different recovery programs we'll also be presenting.
Okay. Good. Council member, anybody? Wahab.
Sorry. In regards to the businesses, how many people did you guys send out the email to for the survey?
Every business in Hayward with an active business license.
Okay. And I'm hoping, what is our target goal of responses?
Well, as many as possible. I wouldn't want to put a percentage now and miss the mark, but we hope to have a statistically significant response.
Okay, so I would just like to send a reminder every couple of days because this is important to us. I would also like to, since Mr. Kim Huggett is on the call, to make sure that he also informs his businesses that are part of the chamber to please fulfill this survey. So I just want to highlight that.
Absolutely. So our group is working hand in hand with the PIO's office, the Community Media Relations Division. It's on a very robust social media push with very incremental scheduled reminders through the SurveyMonkey system. So we are actively pushing it. So. And
just another thought, listen, I know we're in a rush, but is it if we're not going to have the results of that in May, I guess maybe we'll have the results, but we may want to do something more. If we're going to do a more general conversation, maybe that's in June after we have the results. And then we'll think of some other ways to maybe shift something to May. So I don't know. It's just something to think about. So we'll give it all some thought. I just didn't want you to be surprised if that more general conversation happens in June so that we could have the results. But
okay. Muted.
If there's no one from staff, if there's nothing more from staff, I'll move to council. Any council announcements?
Yes. So number one, I'm happy to kind of see what we can do next month, and hopefully we can do something a little bit interesting. I'll probably email you. In regards to staffing levels, I definitely do want to have that consideration regarding our staffing levels for the economic development. If the city of Hayward wants to get a little bit more serious about economic development, especially during this time, especially with our COVID funds, and so much of the need around our city, we also need to get serious about supporting the team to bring in jobs and businesses. And my goal overall is I do want jobs and partnerships at all levels. This basically means internships, entry level, low skilled job opportunities journey level professional jobs, and then partnerships with our unions, CSU, East Bay, Chabot, HUSD, apprenticeship trainings, and so forth. And I don't necessarily want to recreate the wheel. And I've said this many times, like, we don't need to create a incubator. We need to partner with an incubator, right? That's kind of the goal that I have, right? Especially since we are running very lean. And I know that to Director Ott, she has to deal with a lot of my requests, but as my boss says, embrace the chaos. So if we can definitely be innovative and try to do that, I'd appreciate that. So thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Andrews.
Yes, I was also going to say Paul is going to be speaking at the Black Business Roundtable next month, May 12th at 12, and he will be talking about the survey. So I recommend he does the same to the Latino Business Roundtable, and then also encourage people who do have businesses in Hayward to adopt a block, as we do need to keep our streets clean, and it'd be great if our businesses would take part in that.
Thank you. And for Ms. Phyllis's sake, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The recording has stopped.